A very warm welcome to you listening to wherever you are around the world. I'm Dan Beswick and today I'm joined by Blaze Ross yet again. Blaze, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm going good. I'm in Sydney now, going from the Gold Coast, heading back to Fiji. So yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, the life of Blaze Ross. Quite a journeyman, actually. Once again, while we have you here in a constant place, we'll get the show on the road. Another packed show here at overthelinesports.com.au. We'll start with the EPL yesterday morning, and of course the morning before as well. Just going through the results in the Premier League, of course, every team playing midweek. We had Man United defeating Stoke City 2-1. There was a draw between Burnley and Newcastle. Aston Villa beat Crystal Palace 1-0. Liverpool overcame Leicester City 3-1. Swansea City defeated QPR 2-0. And West Ham defeated West Brom 2-1. Thursday morning's games, it was too easy for Man City against Sunderland at the Stadium of Light against a bogey team in Sunderland, especially with Sunderland at home. Chelsea, too good for Tottenham with a 3-0 win. Arsenal overcame Southampton. That's 2 losses on the trot for Southampton. And Everton, of course, giving away a lead and settling for a point with Hull City. We'll start with the Wednesday morning games, and we'll start with United. It's another win for United. They're starting to gather some momentum, Blaze. What did you make of their performance against Stoke?
Yeah, you see, that was a great game. United actually have gotten back on track of late. Everyone was saying they're having a horrendous season, and I was definitely with them. And we actually mentioned something of it, and they've proved us wrong. So they've been doing really well. Against Stoke, they actually nearly conceded in the last minute of that. I think it was the 94th minute. And Donzi had a great chance cleared off the line by Young. But yeah, United have been doing really well. They're really getting into form, like you said. However, can they hold this up all season is the real question. Everyone goes through that bit of a lull. I know they've already kind of had that at the beginning of the season, but they've been trying to get back into some form of shape after the whole David Moyes scandal, debacle, or whatever you want to call it. And so yeah, they've been trying to get back into shape. They're finally kind of finding their way. Can they hold it up all season? I don't know, but I reckon they could definitely get back in the top 4. They won't push Man City or Chelsea, but they'll definitely be fighting for that 3rd place, 4th place, 5th place. I reckon they'll definitely be 4th or 5th. So that'll be the lowest that I would potentially give them for the season.
I have to agree with you. I think Van Gaal's tactics are starting to get through the heads of the entire Man United squad. I think from top to bottom now, they've all got a pretty fair idea of where Van Gaal sits in terms of his tactical mindset and how he wants to play. Of course, we're going to keep harping on about the fact that at the back, United are really, really struggling in terms of numbers and just strength in depth in the defensive line. January could come at a pretty important time for United, and I think Van Gaal will certainly have a few players in mind to sort of bolster that defence. But in attack, I mean, you can't really fault them, of course. So many quality players with not only individual talent, but starting to link up nicely too between each other. It's too early to say that they're back to their United best, because the United best is the best when when it's all there and everything works out for them. I can see them finishing 4th. The way they keep playing here, they could push for 3rd. They won't push for the title. I think Chelsea and City are probably a bit too good for that. But again, I think United really do have the strength and the capability to push on in the league. What would you take of the other games midweek, Blaze?
Definitely love the Manchester City result against Sunderland. Usually Sunderland get the 1-0 result over City here. The Stadium of Light, it's always come down to 1-0. And majority actually were thinking that it possibly could happen again. But Man City came out strong, and who was the hero in that game? It was yet again Sergio Aguero. 2 goals and an assist in a 4-1 thumping of Sunderland. He's just a brilliant player. Man City, they've really gone a long way this season. They haven't been as good as previous seasons. Then again, it's kind of the hangover period after winning the title. But they really have to keep it up to keep in touch with Chelsea, who actually won 3-0 against rivals Tottenham at Stamford Bridge this morning as well. So it's really going to be a struggle for City to get back on terms with Chelsea, being 6 points behind, obviously. I know there's 25 plus games to go, but yeah, City need to win every game, basically, to keep in touch with the high runners Chelsea at the moment.
Chelsea is still the side to beat, as we saw in yesterday morning's games, of course. Very, very strong performance once more. But you do raise a good point about Aguero. We did say in the last podcast, Blaze, that Aguero is probably the best striker in the world right now in terms of an out-and-out number 9 at the spearhead of your attack. You have to say, if you're going to pick anyone based on form right now, Sergio Aguero is probably your guy. I just want to move into the other two games of yesterday morning. We'll look at Arsenal-Southampton, of course. Southampton with a very difficult stretch of games they're currently going through, and it is to sort of show if they're the real deal or not. At the moment, they're dropping points a little bit too easily. All 3 points, in fact, to Arsenal, and then on the last weekend as well. Where do you see them realistically finishing on the table?
I'll definitely have to go with the top 6 performance still. I know everyone's kind of taken them off the cards now simply because of the loss to City. City did get a red card in that match and still won 3-0, so that was pretty demoralising loss in Southampton, especially in front of the home support. And now they've travelled to the Emirates to versus Arsenal and they've lost this game again. However, that game was only decided by Alexis Sanchez, the informed Arsenal man. And I think it was the 86th minute or something. It was like 5 minutes to go. So Southampton were pretty unlucky not to at least get a point in that game. However, they still didn't obviously get the point. They lost. They didn't get anything. So they're really going to have to come and try and bounce back against informed United. They versus United. It's going to be a tough game for them, but I do see them in the top 6 still. Definitely got a difficult run. Yeah, I've got an absolutely astonishing run coming up, and that's just it's incredible how difficult it is. But this is obviously where we are going to see whether they really are the contenders that they proved to be earlier in the season, or they're just going to be pretenders.
I'm sure if they looked at the fixture list when it came out earlier this year, they would have looked at this stretch of games and been, well, this is going to make or break our season. And at that stage, considering the amount of players that they lost, that probably would have been a very important time in terms of potential relegation. Of course, they came out, played excellently throughout the first 10 match days of the Premier League, and they put themselves in a spot where they surely they couldn't get relegated from here. We knew that the team was lighter considering the players they lost and the manager they lost in Pochettino as well, who we all can agree is quite a good manager. And they've come out, they played excellently. Now they're going through a rough patch, playing against the stronger teams in the league, and they are showing that they're not a top 4 team. So yeah, they will find their place eventually, probably after this run of really difficult games to get through. I'll just quickly touch on the Everton-Hull City game. Romelu Lukaku netted for Everton in the first half. They actually held the lead in the first half, and they gave it away. And quite a few voices, particularly in the Everton forums that I've been reading throughout the course of today and yesterday, saying that, look, at times, it looks like Roberto Martinez doesn't have a plan B, and it looks as though he wants to play brilliant football, but it doesn't really have a cutting edge. They're beating teams in terms of possession, but on the score sheet, they're just really struggling to put teams away. Lukaku scored in the 33rd minute, and then Sona Luko for Hull City equalised after the break at 51 minutes. So yeah, again at Goodison Park, you don't expect Everton to drop points against a team like Hull City at Goodison Park. Do you think anything has to change at Everton, Blaze?
Everton are a great side. They're just going through a rough patch this season. Every team goes through it. Like you saw Chelsea. I know Chelsea won the Champions League that season. However, they did actually end up finishing 7th in the Premier League, which is absolutely ridiculous by their standards. I think Everton are a quality team, and Lukaku is a quality striker. So I'm not actually quite sure where Everton aren't doing the job. Like they are a decent team, and they should be pushing for top 4 like they always do. I kind of agree. He's sort of like Pellegrini in a way. Pellegrini, he goes out full on, and he just doesn't really have a second plan B. If it comes to that, usually he's all for the plan A, and plan A will work. But then when it doesn't work, he's trying to think of what to do on the spot, which is a bit difficult. I don't know. Everton are going to find it really tough this weekend too, especially with Aguero being in form. They're travelling to the Etihad, where they don't really have that good of a record. So your boys are coming to the Etihad, mate. I don't reckon they're going to get too much out of it.
Martinez does nail his colours to the mast. He nailed them as soon as he got to the club. Last season, at the beginning of last season, of course, when Moyes left, we all know how the Moyes situation panned out. And, he does bring a different style of football to Everton, and it was the style that Everton needed. The only problem is we just don't have the players maybe to execute it to the way that Martinez wants it to. I think we've got the potential. I think Barkley's someone who can change the game. I think that Barkley could turn out to be one of the best attacking midfielders in the world. They're starting to, lose points to teams like Hull and Crystal Palace. In defence, they need to bolster up. John Stones is out. Baines, there's been a bit of an injury cloud over him over the last couple of weeks. Do need a bit of depth there. Have been conceding goals. Again, Hull City is a team that you should not be dropping points to at home if you want to be a team in the top four. And Everton not showing that top four potential. If people think they've got top four potential. Personally, I think they're going to end up somewhere like Southampton and end 5th and 6th. Hopefully retain a Europa League place. If not, win the Europa League and get a Champions League place, which they're doing this season, I believe. That might be the case. That might be the plan for Martinez. We'll move on to the Champions League, of course. Reaching fever pitch now, in full swing. And the last match day, of course, is next week. We'll have a look at that now because quite a lot of these games have a huge bearing on the way the knockout stages will end up. First, we'll look at Liverpool taking on Basel. That's happening in Group B. Of course, the other game will be Real Madrid and Ludogorets. Now, if we were to look at the table, Real Madrid is already through quite easily. The big game in this one is Liverpool against Basel, unless Ludogorets manage to win and somehow get through against Basel and Liverpool. But Basel-Liverpool is the big game here. Liverpool at home. Can Basel get the result to get them through to the next round?
Well, Liverpool have really been disappointing so far this season in the Champions League, and yet they've still got themselves into a position where they are likely to go through. If they're playing at Anfield against Basel are a quality side and they can do it, and I would definitely not write them off. I actually could fancy them saying a draw, and if a draw, I'm pretty sure Basel will go through if it's a draw, am I right?
I believe so, unless Ludogorets beats Real Madrid and then it's a sticky situation. I highly doubt that'll happen.
Yeah, I highly doubt Ludogorets will take to beat Madrid. So basically, Basel are just looking for a draw in this match. So they're going to play pretty defensively, I'd say. And it's going to be a bit of a tough one for Liverpool. They're really underperforming this season. They're not playing too well. Everyone's actually under fire. Brendan Rodgers definitely under fire. So it's going to be a really tough game for them, and it's going to be a tough game for Basel. So it's going to be hard to pick this one. I'm actually going to tip a 1-1 draw, to be honest. I can't really go past that, yeah.
Basel punch above their weight in Europe. As a Swiss competitor, sometimes they get a little bit lost in terms of the limelight in the Champions League football. I do think they've got the quality to get the result they need to overcome Liverpool in terms of the table. On the field, it probably ends in something like a draw. Liverpool, it's crunch time for them now. They've really been struggling domestically. They need the Champions League to sort of revive their season under Brendan Rodgers. They're going to be a determined outfit, but like you said, I don't mind the draw here. Basel could do well to park the bus and maybe break Liverpool on the counter. And Simon Mignolet has been a player there's questions being asked around Liverpool in terms of Mignolet and his goalkeeping ability. Out of form goalkeepers don't really translate well in big European games, considering the tension and the build-up that this game will get. With all those points pointing me in the direction of Basel going through, I think I might take Basel nicking at least a result, a draw maybe.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely have to go with Basel nicking something. And yeah, Mignolet actually scored a goal on the week against Leicester. Actually, it was an own goal. So Mignolet hasn't been up to scratch. It's really lacking somewhat. So I don't know. Yeah, I definitely have to go with Basel on this one.
Back to Group A, and we've got Olympiacos taking on Malmo. Malmo mathematically eliminated. They cannot make the second stage of the competition. Olympiacos, I believe, beat Juventus at home, so I think that head-to-head is interesting.
Yeah, that was a 3-2 victory for Olympiacos.
So a win for Olympiacos and a loss for Juventus would put them both on 9 points. Again, the tiebreak you have to bear in mind is not for and against, it's head-to-head records. To be honest, I have to say both Juventus and Atletico Madrid go through from that. Maybe a draw, maybe a Juventus win at home. They're the only two results I really see, I think, because Atletico Madrid are guaranteed a place into the second stage of the competition. We'll go to Group C. Bayer Leverkusen taking on Benfica. Bayer Leverkusen is top of the group on 9 points. Monaco on 8, Zenit on 7. Benfica mathematically eliminated on 4 points. The game of this group would have to be Monaco versus Zenit because a win for either side would take them through, but a draw helps AS Monaco. Monaco are at home against the Russians travelling, of course. Russian teams do have a difficulty travelling and playing away from home, especially in Western Europe. I'd take Monaco, but again, Zenit have the quality. They've got Hulk, of course, Zenit St. Petersburg. Hulk is quite an experienced campaigner now and quite a journeyman in his own right. For me, it's Monaco. Who do you take this one?
Yeah, I definitely have to go with Monaco in this one. I was about to say, if they're travelling, then they're not going to do too well. Russian teams at home, absolutely brilliant, and I probably would write off Monaco if it was away from home for them. However, being away for Zenit, I'm just going to have to straight up say it's going to be a Monaco win.
Again, bearing in mind, of course, Zenit could still technically win the group if Bayer loses their game to Benfica, and Bayer and Zenit would actually go through. So a couple of combinations and permutations could occur there as well. Quickly to Group D, both teams already through. Arsenal and Borussia Dortmund, Anderlecht and Galatasaray cannot advance no matter what. So we'll move to Group E. This one's interesting because we've got three teams equal second, all on 5 points. Roma, Manchester City and CSKA Moscow. Bayern Munich win the group no matter what. They're 7 points in front before the last match day. The disadvantage for CSKA Moscow, they actually have to take on Bayern, who could also rest players at home. Could happen. And of course, Roma taking on Man City. Blaze, I know you've been following this group closely given City's involvement. How does it pan out next week?
This is a very tough one, and this is a very hard thing to do, watching this, and it's going to be an absolutely immense final day. It's going to be hard going between the CSKA Moscow game. It's going to be hard watching the City game, knowing that if Moscow get a result, even though it's really, really difficult to see it, if Moscow get a result, it's going to be real tough, based on it's home and away instead of the points difference. So, but the thing is that we do have to beat Roma, and that's been really tough, actually travelling to Roma. So it's going to be a really, really difficult day to watch because Roma are a quality team. I know they got smashed by Bayern, and we drew with them 1-1 when they played us at the Etihad. So I don't know, I can see us coming away with a win because I know that City are meant to be in the quarterfinals, for example. We're meant to be there. Like we've spent so much money, we should be there. But I think the boys might amp up. Sergio Aguero, need I say more? Roma at home, they're probably going to go a bit of a defensive lineup to hit on the counter, and that's what we lack. We lack in the defensive counter. So I reckon it might actually finish 3-2. To be honest, I reckon the sportsbet.com.au will probably have the under 2.5 goals the favourite, but I reckon there's going to be plenty of goals in this. I reckon Sergio Aguero getting the goal sheet. I reckon it's going to be a brilliant game. I reckon it might finish 3-2. I reckon City will win though.
So many combinations that could come out of this game. All three teams involved will be on the phone to people watching the other games, giving them updates, and it will affect the tactics being played over the course of the game. For me, I'm going to sit on the fence here. I've got no idea how this pans out. I'm going to say, I say Roma goes through, given that they're at home next Wednesday. They'll get a result. They're a form team in Italy, and they could do the job. Let's go to Group F. Both teams decided, not even close. Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain through on 12 and 13 points respectively. Ajax on 2 points. Apoel, of course, you remember the Cinderella story of Apoel a couple of seasons ago. Unfortunately for them, it hasn't panned out the same way. The Paris Saint-Germain-Barcelona game has quite a big bearing, given on who gets the top seed to move forward in the group. Barcelona at home. You have to say probably Barcelona on paper, but Zlatan returns to the new camp. Could be an interesting result.
Yeah, I'm still going to go with Barcelona here. They're a quality team. We all know that. They're at home at the Camp Nou. I can't write off Barcelona. It's going to be a good game, but I think it'll finish 2-1 Barcelona.
It's going to be an interesting game, purely based on Ibrahimovic. Barcelona at home, surely. Again, though, a draw is good enough for Paris Saint-Germain to win the group. So Paris Saint-Germain could sit back as well, hit on the counter. Ibrahimovic is a good man to have at the head of your counter attack, especially if you're crossing the ball into him. It's Barcelona for me, just. And again, the guys, Messi and Neymar and all those guys are so experienced in Europe. Paris Saint-Germain are a little bit less experienced in Europe, considering their financial takeover has only been over the last few seasons. Quite a good batch of young players, willing to play the new camp. They'll be excited, but they'll also be very nervous. And I think Barcelona will get through there. And finally to Group G, the big sort of situation here is Sporting Lisbon, Schalke. Now, they play the other teams in the group. Schalke play Maribor, who are bottom of the table and mathematically eliminated, while Chelsea take on Sporting. Now, Chelsea are at home. Chelsea's probably the form team in Europe, putting aside someone like Bayern Munich. But they're already through and they're already top of the league. They could rest players. Are they still going to be too good for Sporting Lisbon, considering that civilization they have in midfield with all that depth?
Yeah, I definitely have to go with Chelsea here. Sporting Lisbon, I know that they're up there, but I just don't think they're going to have enough quality to even beat Chelsea's B side, to be honest. I'm not really sure. I haven't really been paying too much attention to this group because I always knew that Chelsea were going to win it. But I don't think Chelsea are going to lose this match, whether it's a B side or a C side. I just think Chelsea's a quality team all around.
Yeah, agreed. Fantastic depth throughout their team. And someone like Sporting Lisbon will flounder. The other game, of course, could have a huge bearing considering a Schalke win and a Sporting Lisbon loss means that Schalke go through. Schalke under Di Matteo. Di Matteo will be pretty determined to go through in a group that does involve Chelsea. Obviously, their team went down to Chelsea and Mourinho tried to play down that whole Di Matteo versus Mourinho game, but a lot of the media did hype it up in that way. Can't really see Maribor getting a result here, even though they're at home. Schalke will be very determined. There's a good chance that Schalke do win this game. And again, it comes down to the final match day in terms of that second spot. For me, I'm going to go with Schalke.
Yeah, Schalke all day. Maribor did get a 1-1 draw with Chelsea, I believe, when Maribor played the home match against them, which was a massive shock. However, Chelsea didn't really care about that match. They don't really care at the moment because they know they're through. They knew they were through ages ago. Basically, they knew they were through before the group stage. Look, like I said, all teams can be difficult on their day, but this group just didn't seem like they were up to it from the start. And so it's going to be different between the two, but I reckon Schalke should get the 3 points here.
Finally to Group H, and nothing can really change here. Porto and Shakhtar Donetsk already through. Porto cannot move from first place, and Shakhtar Donetsk cannot move from second, though they do play each other. I think they'll rest a lot of players, knowing that neither team can shift on the competition table. Isn't much to talk about there, but you have to say, Porto, with 13 points across 5 match days, they've gone a little bit under the radar.
Yeah, they definitely have. I don't reckon they're going to go too far in the knockout stage when they're versing teams like potentially Barcelona or Real Madrid or Atletico if they make it through. They definitely have gone under the radar. No one's been speaking about them really at all because everyone's so focused on the Bayern Munich, Moscow, Roma and City group. But they've been flying under the radar, and it'll be interesting to see how they go once they get through the group stage to see if they're more than just for this group. See if they're not just pretenders. I really hope they actually can do something out of there to shock a few, knock out some of the big dogs.
Touching on Porto briefly, they've done excellently, and you have to say it started with the defence. Their captain Helton, very solid between the sticks. He's been there for plenty of years. They've also got Bruno Martins Indy, who made a name for himself at the World Cup. They've got Mike on there as well. Quaresma, Yassine Brahimi, Juan Quintero, of course, who also made a name for himself for Colombia in the World Cup, Jackson Martinez, and Jose Angel. So, on paper, they've got a squad that perhaps to people a little bit less knowledgeable about football, they have a squad that could go a little bit under the radar, like we've said, but they've proven so far that they've done quite a good job in the Champions League. Of course, they've only conceded 3 goals, which is, if you to look at sort of everyone throughout the Champions League, not many clubs in the Champions League can boast a goal difference such as that. They've also put away 15 goals in 5 games. So with a goal difference of something like 12, I think it's equal in terms of the best goal difference throughout the competition. Chelsea, I think, are another team on plus 12 goal difference. So just shows that while Group H could be seen as probably the weakest group, a team like Porto can't really take them lightly considering they're still undefeated in the competition. Moving back home now domestically in the A-League, we've seen 2 games over the last 2 nights, and we've got another game coming up tonight as well. We'll look at quickly the Wanderers versus Raw. At Wonderland, they did lose 1-0 thanks to an Enrique penalty. Wanderers still winless, Blaze.
Yeah, I tipped them last week to take on Sydney and get the 3 points. and they actually deservedly got up 1-0, and they actually could have put away another one for the counter-attack from Sydney FC, and they ran up the other end of the field and they scored straight away. Wanderers absolutely dominated that game, but yet they still couldn't manage the win. Yeah, it just happened again. They just didn't know how to put away their opportunities against Brisbane Roar. And now Brisbane with their new coach, Franz Tyson, after Mulvey was sacked midweek, it's going to be tough for the Warriors to come back from this one. They've got the World Club Challenge coming up soon, where they're going to be facing big dogs like Real Madrid, and I don't really give them a hope in hell in that game. But yeah, they're really struggling in the league, and they're still on the bottom of it without a win. To think the grand finalists of last season, plus the champions of the Asian Champions League, you'd really be thinking that they'd be on something better than a goal difference of -7 and 3 points. Only 3 draws so far this season. Absolutely ridiculous. I can't see anything on the upwards for here from the Western Sydney boys.
Yeah, I keep saying that they'll revive their campaign and put the results on the board, and I thought surely against another struggling team like Brisbane, they'll do the job. Again, they didn't do that. Hearing from Nikita Rukovicya yesterday, he was saying that, look, it's just bad luck and surely the goals will bang in soon. If you're a Wanderers supporter, I don't think you're that optimistic. I think, honestly, a couple more results like this, and the panic buttons are pressed, and we could see a situation at Wanderers HQ. They won't sack someone like Popovic, who's just been announced as the Continental Coach of the Year of the Asian Confederation, of course. Again, though, if you can't get the results domestically, it does spell a problem for your club. I'm so up in the air about how their season will end up. I think they'll make the 6 eventually. I think they will garner the results to make the 6. And as we know in the A-League, you kind of get rewarded for being a little bit mediocre throughout the league season, and you do get another bite of the cherry in the playoffs. They might give it a push then. It's a long way until March and further. Again, too early to tell, but it's just a situation that the Wanderers shouldn't be dealing with. They've been so good on the continental stage, and they've just floundered domestically, and it's very interesting to see. We've never seen this before from this club. Even from when they started, they did look a little bit shaky for the first couple of games in their existence, but that's about it.
Yeah, well, if you have a look at the table at the moment, it definitely is split in 2 halves. The Wanderers are sitting in last place on 3 points with 3 draws. However, Brisbane Roar, who is in 6th place at the moment, are on 7 points. So the Wanderers only need to get 4 points to get into the top 6. They only need 1 win and a draw to muster up into the top 6. So the top 5 are kind of running away with it, especially Perth Glory and Victory United and Sydney FC. So Wellington at home, that's why they're still up there. I don't think they're going to stay there into the final game days. I reckon Brisbane and Western Sydney might get there. It's going to be tough, though. I really can't see much about the Wanderers at the moment, and I do kind of agree with you that they should be getting to the top 6, but I don't know if they're going to do it this season. I reckon this could be the season where they're finally going to come undone for a bit. They've just had so much success for so long. They have to have a season where they're just going to be underperforming, and this could be potentially the season.
Bit of a reality check for the Wanderers, but as you said, only 4 points to bridge that gap to 6th and make the finals at this stage. You did brush on Perth Glory. Excellent win last night against Perth Glory. Did an excellent job of coming back from a goal down thanks to a dubious penalty that was converted by Shane Smeltz. Of course, Griffith scored in the 83rd minute and Keogh took the lead for the Perth Glory on the 87th minute. We've spoken for several weeks now about the revelation of someone like Andy Keogh. He's the man that's going to turn around the Perth Glory now, especially with Hersey out injured.
Yeah, well, that result really did impact that top 4. If Perth hadn't won that and Sydney had kept that 1-0 scoreline, Sydney actually would have gone equal top. And on for and against, they've both got 5 goals. So, yeah, Sydney really disappointed by that. They could have made their equal first, and that would have left the opportunity open for the Victory to take over from the front if that hadn't happened. So Andy Keogh, like you've brushed over, Andy Keogh is a brilliant player. We actually mentioned him a couple of weeks ago, and we were discussing how brilliant a player he actually is and how great of a signing he was, the ex-Leeds United man. I reckon he's going to lead them to somewhat glory this season. I don't know if they're going to win it. I reckon the Victory is still going to win it. But I reckon that Keogh is definitely the signing that Perth were looking for in the off-season to bolster that front line.
He's a signing that everyone needs because as an international marquee player, he's come from a background that plays very similar football. in terms of the physicality. That's where someone like Villa and the sort of South American lads have a little bit of trouble in terms of dealing with the physicality of the league. Andy Carroll's come in, was not given too much media exposure given that, one, it was in Perth, and two, he was probably overshadowed by David Villa at that stage. But a lot of people who knew their football would have said, look, there's a very good chance that Keogh would be the signing of the season. And at the moment, it's proving to be just that. Perth Glory, of course, now far in front, on top of the table, looking like possibly the best team that Perth have dished up in the 10 years of the A-League. We'll look to tonight's game between the Mariners and the Melbourne Victory. The first topic of conversation is the fact that the game's being played at North Sydney Oval tonight. A few issues with this, of course. The Mariners' situation in terms of finance. We've heard that the Mariners have brought in Peter Storey, who, for Portsmouth fans and even those who support the Mariners as well, will know that he's got quite a bad history in terms of not only finances but just the overall day-to-day managing of a club. If you head to overthelinesports.com.au, we've actually got a Portsmouth and a Mariners fan who is discussing the prospect of Peter Storey actually being a part of the Mariners and really shaking his head and feeling sick about the whole thing because he ruined Portsmouth for a lot of the fans, and it looks like he's about to play his part in the Mariners' downfall. A lot of protests going on by the Mariners for the fact that this game is even being played away from Central Coast Stadium. Central Coast Mariners fans won't chant for the first half in protest. You might actually find me there, actually, if I put my Mariners fan cap on, and I'll be there putting up signs saying something along the lines of, oh, this is a funny looking Gosford, or where are the palm trees, or, she doesn't even go here, stuff like that. If you see that, make sure to give us a shout out. The Victory, of course, on the other end, playing some very good football. They're obviously going to be thereabouts in terms of the end of the season. Kevin Muscat actually set to rest players based on the surface of the North Sydney ground, based on the cricket pitch actually in the middle of the park. He's set to rest Guillaume Finkler and a couple of other players. How do you see this game panning out? Because the Mariners are well and truly down near the bottom of the ladder, and given that it's technically their home game, it's quite a vital one that they get a result with.
I was actually about to mention about that article too. I actually love that article. That was a great article about that story. So I was going to say that too, but you've already kind of mentioned that. I can't see Mariners get anything from this game. I know they're at 7th. They've got 6 points. They've at least got 1 win to their name. But I can't see anything coming from the Mariners against a red-hot Victory side. So
the Mariners are a type of team that always punch above their weight when the going gets a little bit tough. I can see them getting some form of result. My heart says Mariners will nick a point, and nicking a point considering it's your home game sounds ridiculous in itself. But my head probably says the Victory, and I think that's a little bit disappointing. And it's just a bad situation at the Mariners, and you have to feel sorry for every single person here that follows the club religiously. I know the crowds haven't been particularly amazing, but again, the demographic's not as big either compared to the rest of the teams in the league, so that also has to be considered. We'll only look at the midweek games because we're running out of time, Blaze. We'll look at the AFL draft because that's something that you, of course, covered. It was held at the Gold Coast Convention Centre. Big place on the big event on the AFL calendar. As a lot of clubs look to rebuild, via the youth, of course. And someone like St Kilda needed to do very well in the draft, given that they placed last year on the AFL ladder. Blaze, what did you think of how the Saints went about their national draft picks? Did you think they sorted out the areas they needed to fix?
Well, yeah, you'd have to assume so, having the number 1 pick in the draft and having 2 picks in the first round. So I think they were absolutely spot on with all 4 of their picks, and they're definitely great signs for the future youth-wise. Emphatic captain figure Nick Revolt may still be their best player currently. However, he's just turned 32. He's getting to be on an age. Wouldn't expect many more years out of him. So their decision on who to go with the number 1 pick was pretty simple, really. However, it obviously did take a lot of time. It's coming in last place. Majority of this team needs fixing. However, the Saints really need a great forward to take over the reins from Revolt, and they certainly got that in Paddy McCartan. Definitely someone they can rely on in the future. He's a big unit, dominant forward. Definitely think they got what they needed, and definitely got who they needed first up. But like I said before, some key figures were needed to reshape all aspects of the squad, and they surely got what they hoped in all positions. Goddard was a bargain in defence, touted as a top 10 pick. Saints snagged him at 21. Daniel McKenzie will bring some speed and agility to the midfield, and Jack Lonnie is potentially one of the best small forwards in the draft. So that's a bonus for them as well after taking him with the 41st pick.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Jack Looney, to be completely honest. He was picked all the way back in the 41st. According to all reports, he's got the attributes to succeed at St Kilda. He's good at chasing down defenders, forcing them to make mistakes. A real nuisance when it comes to pressuring the opposition. And he's clearly shown that he's got that type of go-getter sort of attitude, and then he can create quality opportunities for his team. I'm really looking forward to see how the Saints go after these picks. We know they've had a really difficult season, and considering what they had to accomplish, they've done a pretty astonishing job. We'll move on to another team that's gone a little bit under the radar in terms of the aftermath of the draft. Of course, you're a Geelong supporter, Blaze. You would have been pretty happy with how the Cats went with their picks this year.
Yeah, well, look, I know man sound a bit biased, and interrupt me if I go on a bit of a rant, but like usual, I think the Cats came out really well from this draft. That being said, it is a bit of a question as to why they didn't improve the defence. Ranking in at 9th for the season was pretty abysmal by our standards. Although I don't mind the potential that Corey Gregson has up front, I really think Geelong should have gone for someone like Clem Smith in defence rather than bolstering our already solid forward line. Definitely would have developed well at the club and could have filled the hole that our ageing defence will eventually leave. The big name recruit, though, definitely has to be Nakia Cockatoo in the midfield. Wells has picked a good one here, albeit being riddled by injury this year. It's going to be the quality player, this one. Really looking forward to what this bright young talent can provide, especially seeing Christensen and Varco traded away. That was a bit of a sad loss. Varco was one of my favourite players, actually, so that's really disappointing. But however, the key factor to what Geelong's problem was last season is that there was really no brilliant ball wear in the middle of the park. Dean Gore, definitely the perfect player to jump straight into that role. Strong contested, has played with experienced men already. He will be the pick of the draft for the Cats, I dare say. Though we obviously haven't even gotten to the NAB Cup yet, so I'll attempt to hold my tongue on that one.
Yeah, it's a big call, but pretty hard to disagree. I thought Geelong were let down in the middle of the park last year, winning the ball off the opening ruck, of course. So I think that's a pretty solid inclusion. I think a guy like Nakia Cockatoo, just on his name alone, can bring a sort of a cult status to the club. I think it's something that Geelong need back to return to their winning ways. Just a little bit surprised by the lack of numbers on the defensive side. Stephen Wells is a quality recruiter, though. He knows what he's doing. But yeah, just to quickly finish up on the draft, do you think St Kilda came out on top?
Funnily enough, I'm actually going to go against the Saints for this one. I'm going to actually jump on the Demons bandwagon. Never would have thought I'd say this before, but definitely jumping on the Demons bandwagon for this season. Having both the number 2 and number 3 picks in the draft, you couldn't possibly go wrong, could you? They definitely did. Selected the highly anticipated Petrarca and practically all-rounder Angus Brayshaw. Midfield of this club, in years to come, this is going to be absolutely outstanding. And although Demon Sports haven't had too much to gloat about recently, I'm really tipping them to jump right back up there soon enough, to be honest. These two players really are going to be something special in the future, and they are definitely going somewhere. And with other picks, including like Neil Bullen, Billy Stretch, McDonald, they absolutely hit the nail on the head in this draft. Watch this space. Jason Taylor, recruiter for the Demons, he surely knows what he's doing with these recruits.
Surely they have to be a force to be reckoned with in the future. I mean, they can't get any worse than previous years. I can't remember the last time Melbourne actually did well in the AFL. I'm going to have to disagree with you on the best team to come out of the draft. For me, I think the Saints have done quite well, and I think they will bounce back from that 16th place, solidified in every position, got what they needed. We've seen plenty of times before where big-name recruits have failed miserably, both in the AFL and in the NFL. In what is a good segue for the NFL, let's look quickly to today's game between the Bears and the Cowboys. Cowboys have the overwhelmingly better record, though the Bears are at home at Soldier Field. We know about the Cowboys struggling in December, but we also know the Bears have been far from good. Who do you take in this one, Blaze? Quite an interesting situation.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go with Dallas in this one. I think Murray's still going pretty well. I think he's still on that 100-yard per game run, which is an absolutely outstanding achievement, to be honest. And Dallas really need to get back to their winning ways, and Bears aren't that good at home. So I'm really tipping the Cowboys to come back in this one. I reckon I'm probably going to go with the scoreline of maybe 21-17 or something like that. I don't know. It's going to be a close one. It's not going to be too high scoring. but there is going to be a few points on the board. I'm going to tip DeMarco Murray to actually get a touchdown in this one. So Bears at home, I don't understand. I don't get their team. I don't get their lineup when the Bears are at home. So you know what? I'm just going to have to go with Dallas in this one.
Chicago could turn into Pick City today. Of course, we all know about Tony Robo's tribulations, particularly in December. He's very good for throwing a pick or two, as is Jay Cutler, who again has been under par for the Bears. A lot of people in Chicago are actually losing a lot of faith in someone like Jay Cutler. And to be honest, looking at his record, I have to agree. DeMarco Murray could well be the difference for the Cowboys here. And one thing that Dallas had this year and could avoid the problems in December with is their running game. DeMarco Murray's had 288 carries and he's run for 1,427 yards. That's 5 yards a carry in the 12 games he's had. He could go very, very close to 2,000, which would be a fantastic achievement from this guy. He's been so strong, particularly at the start of the year. For me, based on that, I'm going to have to go with the Cowboys.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. Cowboys all day for me. Especially being at Chicago. If it was at Dallas, I'd probably still go Dallas anyway. But especially being at Chicago, Chicago just aren't the team at home. They can definitely manage the win away from home, but they're just not the same team when they're at home in front of their home fans. So, yeah, I can't tip Chicago here. It's surprising to say that when they're the ones at home that sold the field. So it's going to be interesting, but I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
They've really struggled in the NFC North too. Of course, the Lions and the Packers are far and away from the Bears and Minnesota in the NFC North. So we'll end on that today. Thanks for joining me, Blaze.
Yeah, it's been good. Really looking forward to the new AFL season. I'm definitely looking forward to Manchester City next week in the Champions League. So can't wait to come back next week and discuss Man City going through in the group stage.
Of course, plenty of sport to cover, and we'll look into that sometime next week, I'm sure, Blaze. Make sure to keep up to date with all the sport information and news around Australia and around the world at www.overthelinesports.com.au. Also like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter at OverTheLineAUS. And you can also subscribe to the YouTube channel right here. From me, there's not much more to say. So from everyone here at overthelinesports.com.au, it's goodbye.